Welcome back into Sports Memos Betting Podcast. College football, every game on the board. This is segment number 4 with our closer, Teddy Covers. Teddy, welcome into the pod. How are you?
I always say it. Coffee is for closers, man. I'm drinking tea today. What am I going to do? Cheers. How are you?
I'm doing good, Teddy, and we got a good slate of games here to end it. We got some late night
Stop
specials
for a minute.
here.
Do you even know the reference? Coffee is for. I mean, am I using like a really obscure reference right here? Coffee is for closers.
No,
There's
I know what you're
that got
talking
made
about.
in a movie. Glengarry Glen Ross. It's a
Yeah.
great. It's worth watching. But
Absolutely.
Coffee is for closers. Alec Baldwin says the line. Yeah.
Yeah,
Sorry.
it's a great line. I didn't know where you wanted me to go with it. I know there's sales guys out there. I'm sure watching this podcast, and sales guys know exactly what you're talking about, Teddy.
Sure. Okay. Good. I wasn't sure if that line has fallen into obsolescence yet, but I'm glad it hasn't.
No, that's got another decade, if not more, in it. That's a famous one for at least the sales profession. But Teddy, talking about sales guys, let's give them and everybody else watching some right sides here. Hopefully down the stretch, we got Miami and Pittsburgh. This is a fascinating handicap, Teddy. And guys, by the way, we're going 189, 190 down to the end of the card. This is the 4th section of the Every Game on the Board podcast. The first 3 sections you can find at sportsmemo.com under the podcast tab. Also, we're simulcast on the YouTube channel, so you can watch us if you want to put some faces with some voices, and the Apple iTunes podcast application as well. All different kinds of ways to consume the podcast. But first game up here, Teddy, Miami at Pittsburgh in the ACC. We got the Pitt Panthers laying 5.5 now at home, 43.5 the total. Right off the bat, Teddy, I like Pitt here, man. I like him a lot, and I think Miami is a dumpster fire. How do you view this one?
So my first reaction was look at Miami plus the points. And the concept is really simple. You know, there's 3 reasons why I was looking at Miami plus. First, when we talk about, and I'm always interested in the series history. I want to know what happened. I want to know how these teams match up. I want to know what the athleticism edges are. And, you know, Miami dominated this team last year. And they dominated in a game where N'Kosi Perry I think he threw for 50 yards. And Miami still controlled every portion of that ball game. That concerns me about Pitt. I do think there is an athleticism edge for Miami. And we see it every week in college football, where the team that gets smacked and embarrassed at home and they go play somebody else on the road next week and they hang tough. I mean, I could think of what was the example. There was a great example last week that I'm spacing on right now. The one where Arkansas lost at home to San Jose and they gave A&M everything they could handle. Okay. I mean, yeah. You see that there was one last week that was like that as well. That I'm spacing on at the minute. But it's not unusual to see his team play poorly as a favorite, lose as a favorite, and then go play a much better game as an underdog. So I think that the personnel is there for Miami, certainly on the defensive side of the football. I think the spot is there for Miami. Pitt is not a team I'm excited about laying points with. You know, I like Pitt in the underdog role. I don't like Pitt in the let's lay more. I mean, they should have beaten Syracuse by 4 touchdowns last week, and they barely hung on for the cover in that game. That's the problem with laying points with a team like Pitt. So then I started doing the reading and the research on the game, and I have talked myself completely out of the Miami side. There's no way I'm playing Miami this week. At the quarterback, Diaz doesn't know who he's playing QB. He was going back and forth. He said, I'm going to announce later this week. I'm not convinced that either QB is the right answer for Miami right now, because the problem for the Hurricanes is not the quarterback. It's not the skill position talent. It's the offensive line. That is a bad offensive line. And against Pitt, a team that can get after the quarterback, even the spot, even the matchups, I just worry about that Hurricane offensive line getting run over. I wouldn't be surprised if I'm playing Miami. Take them on the money line, take at least a piece on the money line. But they're live to win the game. All that being said, I leaned Miami, and the more work I did on the game, the less I was excited about betting Miami. They are no longer on my short list.
Teddy, staying in the ACC, we got Virginia versus Louisville. We got Virginia now down to 3.5, depending where you're shopping. 51.5 the total in Louisville.
Yeah, I put Virginia -3 in my pocket. I have advised my clients to make the same wager. In my mind, there's a little bit of a class difference here that's not reflected in this point spread, and it comes with Virginia defensively. The 2 defenses, there's no comparison. Offensively, Perkins can light up Louisville. Perkins playing good football. I mean, Virginia has shown more offensive explosiveness than I thought that they would in Louisville's defense. I mean, say what you want about Satterfield and his ability to coach an offense. That's a defense that's short on talent and depth and speed and size. It's not a good Louisville defense. I think Virginia's going to get theirs. And you look at that Virginia defense, and they're capable of shutting anybody down. I mean, they didn't have a great performance against the likes of Notre Dame. Okay, that was a turnover game. Even then, their defense stepped up. I don't think that Louisville could trade points with Virginia, and I think Virginia's going to get theirs. I thought the price here was cheap, and it went up to 3.5 and bet back down to 3. Right now, you can take 3.5 or lay 3, and whichever side you like in this game, I would encourage you to do exactly that because it's not often every day where you get the key number working whichever side you like working your direction. And this is one of those situations. You can lay 3 with Virginia at -110, and you can take plus 3.5 with the underdog Cardinals at -110, and that won't last another 24 hours like that.
Good stuff, Teddy. Great advice there on betting good numbers, especially around key numbers, which that game is 3.5. We got Maction here, Teddy, up next. Akron, the Zips at Northern Illinois, 44 the total. Northern Illinois laying 22.5 or 23 at home.
Well, I mean, literally, like I don't think there's anyone that's betting Akron at all. Yeah. They've lost 12 straight games. They're 2-10 ATS. During that 12-game losing streak. I've got them ranked 124th in yard per game differential. They're a bottom feeder, an absolute bottom feeder, on both sides of the football. And because the betting market is struggling to attract Akron money, we're seeing points where like the Northern Illinois is not a good team. Okay. They're not what they were even last year. This is a mediocre squad being asked to lay more than 3 touchdowns because nobody wants the underdog. And I can understand that nobody wants the underdog, but I don't want the favorite laying this price. They're a good notch or 2 down from where they've been in recent season. Offense, it's not even at 400 yards a game at this stage of the season. And I just can't lay points with that. Not in this range. So easy pass.
Teddy, next game up in the Big 12, Texas Tech at Kansas. We're seeing Texas Tech -4.5 on the road, 64.5 being the total. And Teddy, I look at this one. I wonder if the odds maker's getting a little too cute here, opening it up, Texas Tech -3.5 on the road at Kansas. I mean, the Mad Hatters there, I get it, but I don't know. Kansas, I don't think they can match up with Texas Tech. What are you thinking?
Well, I don't think Kansas can get stops in this game, and the markets don't either. You want to talk about the line move of the week? Look at this total. This total opened like 58.5.
Wow, yeah.
Yeah, it's moved almost a touchdown. And deservedly so when you talk about these two defenses. Again, Kansas, the offense isn't consistent yet. It's not going to be consistent. They have more speed and talent than they've had in recent years. The offensive line play is better than it's been in recent years. But they're going to be, 1 week they're going to be hitting and 1 week they're not. It's not an offense you can go, hey, every week they're going to get 48 like they did last week. No, the Jayhawks offense isn't at that level yet. Texas Tech's offense hasn't been that good either. When you're scoring 14 against Arizona, you're not doing a whole lot right. What they got 24 last week against Iowa State. The passing game's better than it was. But this is not as dynamic an offense as we've seen from the Red Raiders. And it wasn't as it's a very different era in Texas Tech right now. So I can understand why the spread is as short as it is. All that said, the total here is the one that makes the most sense to me. I don't trust either one of these defenses to get stops. I don't trust the Red Raiders to get stops, and Kansas has given up, 49 points a game their last 3? Those aren't pretty numbers. I can understand why the markets has moved a touchdown to the over. Unfortunately, that big market move. Even now, I would still, if you gave me a free bet on this game, I'm still betting the over, but there are probably better opportunities out there. Lean over, miss the best of the number.
He's Teddy Covers. Follow him on Twitter at Teddy_Covers. We got Conference USA up next, Teddy. North Texas at Charlotte. 49ers catching 4 at home. 64 the total here.
This is another one that I like lean over. I mean, my only concern here is Charlotte's pass rush. They have 23 sacks this season. They're one of the better pass rushing teams in college football, a pair of quality ends. And the weakness of the North Texas offensive line, the tackles have not been great in pass protection. The one thing they haven't been able to do, I mean, Fine's getting the ball out of his hands fast. And this team, the Mean Green can chuck the football around. And the one thing that Charlotte has a pass rush They don't have the secondary. I was reading earlier this morning about this game. I was looking for stuff on the total, and the 49ers were very concerned about giving up big plays in bunches against the Mean Green a dynamic offense. North Texas can score. They just can't necessarily stop anyone. North Texas has also been a lousy favorite and a lousy point spread team in recent years. If Charlotte's pass rush get there, it stays under, and they probably cover. If Charlotte's pass rush doesn't get there, I don't even know how many points are going to get scored in this one. I do lean over, and I'm not convinced Charlotte's pass rush is going to get there against an experienced QB who can get the ball out of his hands fairly quickly.
Teddy, the way the college football cards stacked up this week on Saturday, the heavy hitting games all here in this section of the podcast.
Yes!
And first one up, man, talking Big Ten football here. Wisconsin at Ohio State. We got the Buckeyes laying 14 and a half. There is a 13 and a half out there, so I'm not sure if that's opinion in the marketplace. Maybe you can speak to that. 49 and a half being the total. What are you thinking here, Wisconsin versus Ohio State?
So let me start with this. The bet that you make on Akron, Northern Illinois, or North Texas, Charlotte is worth every bit as much as the bet you make on Wisconsin, Ohio State. One game's watch and win, one game isn't. But when you talk about unit sizes, or you talk about where could I find the best wagers, it doesn't have to be on the marquee games. All that being said, this number won't go through the roof because of Wisconsin's defensive stats. Their defensive stats are ridiculous. They're holding foes to 193 yards per game. That's number one in the country. And when you have the number one defense in yardage in the country, you're not going to see wise guy steam moving in against you. That's the Wisconsin money. I don't think Wisconsin is any good, and I don't think Wisconsin matches up well with Ohio State, personally. All right. As we've seen in years past when these two teams have met, there's a lot of talk today for some reason about the Cardell Jones 59-0 game. That was good for my pocket. Back in the day when the Badgers and the Buckeyes were meeting for a Big Ten title. And here's Wisconsin with this ridiculous statistical profile. Again, number one in yards allowed, number three in points per game differential, number three in yards per game differential. A statistical profile of 27 sacks from the defense for the season. Defense allowing opponents 3.4 yards per play. That's number one in the country. All these stats, you're like, whoa, Badgers, whoa. Look who they played. They played a bunch of nobodies and every right team at the right time they possibly could. Ohio State is a freaking juggernaut, okay? There's two teams I've stepped in front of Oklahoma, and I may do it again. The Texas game. And I still think that defense is a little bit vulnerable. Their statistical profile is like Ohio State's. I'm not stepping in front of Ohio State, all right? This team is loaded on both sides of the football. National championship caliber talent, both sides of the ball. They're facing a team that we saw. The only way I understand that Ohio State around this time last year lost, 49-20 to Purdue, and they had a bad game. I get it. Last year's Purdue is better than this year's Illinois. Okay. And I watched the game last week. Jonathan Taylor didn't look right. They lost the game outright because Taylor fumbled on a play that he just didn't. I don't trust Cone to move the football, against the Buckeyes defense. And I genuinely think that Wisconsin's defensive stats are way overrated. It's a good defense, maybe even a very good defense. Their stats say they're the best defense in the country. I'm not buying it. Ohio State or pass for this better.
Good stuff on the Big Ten game from Teddy Covers. We're going to head to the Sun Belt before heading to the big SEC game. And the Sun Belt game we're talking about here, Texas State at Arkansas State. We got the Red Rolls laying 12 in Jonesboro, Teddy, 60 the total. I'll tell you, this Arkansas State team is beat up, man. I have no interest in laying doubles with them. How do you feel?
Yeah, I'm with you 100%. And I have no interest in taking with Texas State either. I mean, Texas State, this is a bad program. And, number 112 in the country on offense, number 115 on defense. If Arkansas State scores, the Bobcats are going to have a really hard time in this one, I would think. They're both weak defensive squads. Only one of the two teams has an offense, and that's the Red Wolves. But, I mean, between them, what have they covered? Like 3 point spreads for the entire season? Neither one of these teams has been a good point spread team, and it's not a game I'm particularly excited about betting on.
All right, the other big one here, and we still have one more on deck as well. Auburn at LSU here, Teddy. We got 59 being the total. LSU, the Bayou Bengals, laying 10.5 at home.
Yeah, and of course, you and I did a video on this game yesterday. One of the videos that we shot in studio here in Las Vegas. You can look at that video. Is that up on Sports Memo right now?
Yeah, the YouTube channel.
Yeah, absolutely. So I would encourage you, if you want more analysis on that game, we went into it pretty well in detail in that video yesterday. But the basic premise that I was making is I have to lean LSU here because we've seen Auburn against a good defense on the road, and we don't trust Nix in that. The Florida game absolutely stands out to me for Auburn. All that said, you know, I'm an LSU believer, and I'm a Joe Burrow believer, but this is one game where I think the first game all season where LSU won't be able to dominate the trenches. Auburn can battle with them on both sides of the line of scrimmage. And we've seen Burrow look like a Heisman candidate and become a Heisman favorite in large part because, you know, he's been upright all year long. And if we see Auburn get pressure on Burrow, we're not going to see the type of numbers that LSU's been putting up. And Auburn's going to cover this point spread and it's going to stay under the total. If they don't get the pressure on Burrow, they're not trading scores with LSU. And LSU is going to run this team out of the gym. My gut reaction is more likely the latter than the former. I think LSU, the big play potential they have is not something that Auburn can match. So I lean favorite here, but this is one of those games where I'll be much more. I can tell you right now, I'm not betting it before kickoff. We're going to watch how that whether Auburn's able to get pressure early on. If they can't get pressure, we'll be betting LSU in game. If they can, we'll be looking at Auburn and under.
Yeah, I agree with you, Teddy, in terms of looking towards the favorite here. And I know we got a lot of Auburn listeners out there to the podcast. And guys, love you guys reaching out on Twitter at Teddy_covers or at Drew Martin Bets. Let us know what you think. And those Auburn listeners out there know Auburn has had a tough time in Baton Rouge, losing their last 9 trips there. So just something to keep in mind. I'm with you on I think Auburn's walking into a buzzsaw with their freshman quarterback in a tough place to play. I would look to lay the points with LSU. We got one Conference USA game before getting to the big Notre Dame Michigan game here. We got Louisiana Tech at UTEP, Teddy. Louisiana Tech laying near 3 touchdowns on the road, 50.5 the total.
Yeah, unbettable game. I'll tell you this, I don't want any part of UTEP. You know, the bottom feeders in college football as you get into October, late October into November, it's already play out the string time for the Miners. They're no good. I mean, the offense can't move the football. If Louisiana Tech is having a good offensive game, they will score as much as they want to, and UTEP's going to have a really ugly game. All that said, I mean, you think I want to lay 3 touchdowns with, with a coach that's a bad coach is a favorite, with the team coming off a huge come-from-behind win that puts them in control of the division last week. I mean, this is a win and go home. You know, this is not a let's run up the score type of game for La Tech. They may do it by accident, but I certainly don't trust them to win this game by a significant margin.
And Teddy, bless you there on that sneeze. But UTEP, man, they're in Texas. I don't know. They got a pretty nice stadium for a G5 team in the Sun Bowl, I believe it's called. I wonder why that program isn't better. Do you know any of the ins about that program?
You ever been to the Sun Bowl?
No, but it looks nice on TV.
Yeah, it looked nice on TV, like the Orange Bowl looks nice on TV. You know,
the Orange Bowl was fun, man. If you went to
it was fun, but it's a crappy old stadium.
Yeah,
you understand?
Well, I don't think it exists anymore.
Exactly. Well, Sun Bowl still does. Okay.
All right. Well done, Teddy Covers. And guys, check out his packages at sportsmemo.com. And we got a special coupon code here, guys, for the podcast. It's a big one. NBA just starting. We got college basketball right around the corner. NFL and college football all in session. And Teddy Covers, one of the best in the business, 57% last 5 years in NFL. He's off to a 1-0 start on the hardwood in the NBA. We got a 1-year all-access package at sportsmemo.com, and you can take half off. That means you're going to get every play in every sport Teddy Covers releases to his clients for under $1,000, just $999 using the coupon code TC999 at checkout. That's TC999 at checkout for his 1-year all-access package at sportsmemo.com. Every play, every sport, under $1,000. $9.99 at checkout. Teddy, the big one here, Notre Dame at Michigan. We've seen a flip favorite here. Michigan was favored by actually more than a field goal. Heavy move here towards Notre Dame. Now the favorite seeing -1.5 as well. 51.5 the total in the big house.
Where'd you see? I never saw Michigan laying more than a field goal. I never even saw a field goal. I saw 2.5 at the opener. Who did someone have a?
I didn't see it either, but when we were doing videos yesterday, our good friend Kelly in Vegas did say that it opened 4, so I'm taking her word for it, but maybe not.
No,
okay,
open 2.5. Yeah. Don't ask.
Are you
Kelly.
sure?
I'm very sure.
I'll look it up. I thought it did as well.
There might have been one rogue book somewhere offshore that opened at 4.
I'm seeing -4 at Circa.
Is that Circa? Yeah, Circa opened 4. Okay, thank you.
That is the world opener now.
That is absolutely right. It did open 4. Kelly's right. I'm wrong. I am shamed.
That's okay.
I mean, whatever. Kelly has good info. I don't mean to dismiss her the way that I did. It opened 4 at one book. So what I consider the opener, and let me make this very clear. Sunday night, all right, after I finish my NFL work, I'll write down what I consider to be the openers for college football. That's the consensus line late Sunday night. Because one book's going to open 4, one book's going to open 2, one book's going to open 1.5, one book's going to open 4.5, and the market's going to tell you. And if you view each of those numbers individually, you're going to get a bad concept of what the opener is. The opener is the first market consensus number. And the initial moves to create that first market consensus number are coming. It's all pure arbitrage. Somebody opens 4.5 and 1.5, they're going to lay the 1.5 and take the 4.5. And the number's going to come somewhere in between. And when that doesn't happen, it's telling you that the markets have a clear opinion about what the right opener should have been. Hence, that's what I'm using to track. So my opener for this game was 2.5. That's why I said that. And by the and it was 2.5 across the board on Sunday night. And to the surprise of absolutely no one. If you want to predict line moves, we try to do it every week on the NFL opening line report. Over the years, I've gotten pretty good at that. I'm not perfect. I'm not perfect in college either, but this is one that as soon as I saw the number, I'm like, there's only one way this money can come. And lo and behold, it's come. Notre Dame. Michigan hasn't beaten good teams in the Jim Harbaugh era. That's the mainstream story. Forgetting the fact that Michigan beat at home. The difference between what they've done at home and on the road the last 2 years has been pretty dramatic. They've beaten 3 top 25 teams at home. They beat Iowa at home already this year. Over the last 2 years, it's not like Notre Dame Michigan can't play on an even field with the Fighting Irish. From a strength of schedule standpoint, it's fairly comparable. From a statistical standpoint, Notre Dame has the better offense. We've talked a lot about Shea Patterson and the struggles that Michigan has had and all of that, but there was something that happened last week for Michigan that is worth. I mean, they were down 21-0 in that game. They were on their way to getting their butts kicked, and then they didn't. They showed something they really haven't shown before. I talk a lot on the pod and on various shows about teams that show a lot of quit and teams that don't. And Michigan was in a position last week. Remember the Wisconsin game, they got punched around and they quit. Michigan last week could have pulled the Nevada, and all right, we're done. And they didn't. They dug deep, they fought, they put themselves in a position to win at the end. They didn't get there. But I view that as a buy sign for the Wolverines. The markets aren't viewing it that way. This, I know I've been higher on Michigan than you and than a lot of people this year. At the same time, you've been back in Michigan in recent weeks. You've been making money, and I wouldn't be surprised if you back Michigan this week. You make money. Not a game I'm likely to play, but if I do get involved, it'll be on the Wolverines as home dogs. That's kind of an intriguing sound to me.
It does. It has a nice ring to it, but at the other side, Notre Dame's been making money for their backers, cashing 4 of the last 5 as well, Teddy. Teddy, I do want to ask you just on this market move, and you're right in terms of the consensus number being under 3 by Sunday night, but it did open 4 first book up and taking real bets at that number. So from 4 to 1.5, I mean, a 5.5 point move. We're already in late October, Teddy, and these are 2 marquee teams here. You don't see that very often. Why do you think that happened in terms of this big of a move at this point in the year?
But it's not a real move.
Okay.
You're giving a move that
Okay.
Circa
That's fine.
opened
It's fine.
4. The broader market opened 2.5. And to move a line from 2.5 for one team favored to 2.5, the other team favored by 1, it's not like that's immoral. That's as much money as it takes to move a line from 2.5 to 3.5. You know what I mean? It's
Okay.
not like a ridiculous amount of and if you remember, and I remember it well, Michigan and Notre Dame met opening game of the 2018 season, and that was the single biggest line mover over the summer. Do you remember how all the money came in on Michigan and Notre Dame opened the favorite? They were -3, and by kickoff, Michigan was like -3. It was a huge line move, and everyone was talking about it like, oh, well, Michigan, why is all the money coming on Michigan? Well, lo and behold, this time all the money's coming on Notre Dame.
Makes sense, Teddy.
And it was a huge line mover last week, but so I don't think it's quite as dramatic as you're making it sound to this line move. Yeah, there's been steady and heavy money towards the Fighting Irish, but it's not a line move for this stage of the season. You're like, oh my God, that line moved 6 points off of air. What's the story? It's not like that.
Okay, makes sense. Let's head out west. We got 2 games left. Pac-12 up first. Arizona State at UCLA. We got UCLA catching 4 in the Rose Bowl, 55.5 being the total.
So my first reaction was, oh my God, this is a great bounce back spot for Arizona State after they went to Utah last week and no-showed. And I mean, they had a rough time offensively against the Utes, and UCLA's defense is not Utah's defense. I'm like, yeah, it's Arizona State. They're cheap. They opened 2.5. And the money poured in on the Sun Devils. And again, that was a Sunday night line. The Sunday night consensus line was Arizona State 2.5. The more I thought about it, the less I was excited about the Arizona State side, and the more I started getting interested in the UCLA side. Here's the concept, all right? UCLA, number one is Arizona State's offense isn't going to work against anyone. It's just, it's not a dynamic offense. For them to win games, they have to be low-scoring games. And those are all the games that, that Arizona State has won against decent teams this year have all been unders in games that are, real close to the vest and tight games, and that's what they do well in. And maybe they could shut down UCLA here and play then. This one will be a defensive scrum, and that's exactly what Herm Edwards wants. But UCLA was god-awful. The markets crashed on them. They went into the bye, and they came out of the bye and covered by how many touchdowns against Stanford last time out? Multiple TDs. And all of a sudden, they're like, hey, forget the first half of the season. This is the back half of the season. We figured some stuff out. The defense is playing better. The offense can move the football. And if you're saying to me, which of these two teams is more likely to have, 5-point power rating adjustment between now and the end of the season? I would pick UCLA over Arizona State. You see what I'm saying? That they're more like, Arizona State is what they are. UCLA has the potential to improve. And we saw that last time out. Maybe that's just Stanford playing with a third-string QB and a bunch of offensive linemen that couldn't block. That is possible. But it's also possible that UCLA's figured something out. And they'll be a bet-on team going down the stretch.
Yeah, we'll buy low here on the Bruins. I don't disagree with you, Teddy. We got Teddy Covers on with us. Follow him on Twitter at Teddy_Covers. And guys, the podcast coupon code here, TC999. That's TC999 at checkout for its 1-year all access package. You'll get every play in every sport for just $99.99. That's $999. TC999 at checkout. 1-year all access package at sportsmemo.com. Last game up, Teddy. We got Mountain West action, late night special. A lot of tickets going to be written on it. Bet appropriately. Don't chase. Don't put the cherry on top too big if you've had a big Saturday. But all that being said, Teddy, some opinion for the late night bettors here. San Diego State at UNLV right here in Las Vegas, 13.5. That's what the Aztecs are laying on the road. 45 the total, Teddy.
So I want to talk this promo for a minute. We're literally giving away all access for a year for what we would less than what we charge for football.
I mean, we've been recording this whole podcast, so unless we're going to go all the way back to the beginning and do it again, I think we're stuck with it. So yeah,
hey, I hope someone takes advantage of that offer because that's a bargain and a half. And again, that's every play every day, write-ups included. Nothing more to buy, no bait and switch. Although I need to ask, they'll get every play till next October 20. What's today? The 24th or something.
365 days, yeah.
Okay, because next year's a leap year. I want them to get 366. That was my point. I want them to
I don't know how the system does it in the back end, Teddy, but we can comp a day, sure.
I appreciate that. But it matters, you know what I mean? I don't want them to have to, hey, man, I signed up last year and I'm a day late and a dollar short. It's a leap year. Make sure they get the extra day, please. San Diego State and UNLV. Let's call this the turnover differential game of the year.
Okay.
All right. The Aztecs, number 2 in the country, plus 11 turnover margin. That defense is nasty. And the offense is not turning the ball over. Agnew's pretty good. The play calling's dicey. The skill position talent is dicey. The quarterback play, I've been impressed with Agnew. More than I thought I would be. Certainly more than I was coming into the season. So San Diego State is going to continue to win turnover battles. On the other side of the equation, UNLV ranks 125th in turnover margin. They're minus 10. They had another ugly turnover game last week at Fresno. Playing with a backup quarterback who is not handling the football particularly well. Oh, and by the way, UNLV upset them last year. San Diego State's in revenge. I don't want the dog. I don't want the dog here. Favorite or pass?
Favorite or pass in Sam Boyd Stadium Saturday night, Teddy. And are you going to be there?
I'll go if you go.
All right. Let's talk about it off camera. I might talk you into that.
Neither one of us is going. Come on. So I'm not going on Saturday night. I try to get to a game every year, but honestly, I mean, years go by before I get to between the Rebel football games. I'm busy on Saturdays. There's a lot of work to be done. So
yeah, sure. No, and as am I. It's just I like going to college football games. So maybe catching it late night. Record the late night Saturday games. And heck,
it's a good idea. And it's better to go now while it's still warm. And people think Vegas doesn't get cold. Vegas gets cold in November and December. There was a bowl game that I went to see, and it was in the afternoon. I was still too cold to hang out. I didn't make it to the fourth quarter. So it was better to go when it's still warm out.
All right. Well, if anyone out there is going here in Las Vegas, reach out to us on Twitter at Teddy_covers or at Drew Martin Bets. We might be there. So looks like San Diego State minus the points is what Teddy is leaning towards. If you have to bet it here in Las Vegas, and guys, remember the coupon code which Teddy was just talking about, TC999 at checkout. We'll keep that active for the next 2 or 3 days on the website. So please give us the thumbs up, the like button on YouTube, and please subscribe on YouTube as well, and the Apple iTunes podcast app. So guys, thanks for tuning in. Teddy, you want to throw out anything before we shut this down?
I want to throw out the garbage, man.
All right,
hey,
buddy.
thanks for taking time out of your busy day to hang with Drew and I. We appreciate it. Good luck this weekend. Enjoy the games and bet with your head, not over it. Blah blah blah. You've heard it all before. You know the drill.
Well done, Teddy Covers. And he'll be back on Monday for the NFL opening line report. And guys, we'll be back tomorrow with Robbie Vino and Hunter Engelhardt talking NFL every game on the board. So thanks for tuning in. Best of luck with your bets.